I want to talk about extraterrestrial access to our earthly eye camera or earthly point of view. This eye camera access is and neural monitoring technology, full body physiology monitoring technology, basically. It is hackable. And apparently it's easy to gain access to the information. It could be so easily accessible that hackers any and everywhere have hacked into the point of view of civilians. I am pretty sure that during Congress, during a congressional hearing well over a year ago, back during the summer, I think it was like Josh Hawley and somebody else, correct me if I'm wrong. They were talking about invasion of privacy as far as some tech goes, and I don't think the tech that they were talking about was phones. But it was back then when there would have been news articles and information. Released about the Chinese gaining access to our photos and videos and purchasing them, and there being purchasers of videos and photos, especially of select civilians. So, there was this mess and scramble about how, the Chinese had gained access to yada yada, and it was such a threat and blah, blah. But also at the same time, it seemed as though people were implying that, other nations were also able to hack the neural monitoring slaves of, all these different nations. And I will call them neural monitoring slaves because anyone who has been injected and implanted with neural monitoring technology or given eye cameras and is then abused, I would consider that person a slave for sure. Technological or even a technocratical, I don't even know how to say it. It would take me a second. Technocratical slave. And then, so anyways, beyond this, what ends up being more fascinating than this is that extraterrestrials can also gain access to, sorry about whatever that was, a gunshot or I can't really apologize for it, a car wreck, I don't know. I'm just going to continue on because they do stuff like this all the time while I'm trying to make videos. Like it hasn't happened for a while because I've, but I guess they can. All right, so extraterrestrials also have access to our point of view and eye camera and neural monitoring technology, and they, I guess, have also been able to watch what is being done to the, I'm going to call them slaves. And this is something that is happening globally. Unfortunately, I know that a lot of it happened over here in North America, especially. This is where especially Elon Musk and several others are headquartered. a lot of the creepy agencies that deal with MK Ultra and illegal or advanced surveillance and monitoring. Um, uh, and I might have at some point tapped into the idea of what I'm going to call hyperdimensional communications, which I first learned the concept of from the New Testament, from information about celestial languages, which I wouldn't have learned about, but people kept trying to take me to church, it was really difficult to get me to go to church. But I do believe that at some point after I was given specific kinds of neural monitoring technology, including the Neuralink, that people would be really insistent on getting me to go to church. And that would have been about the age of 27 when they started actually getting me to go to church. And I would have gone through the secret illegal surgery, a little while before then. And then it would have begun that they would be kind of like, I guess, test me and begin to try to see if they could deceive me in different ways, or um, be abusive and affect my there was definitely some satanic ritual abuse type stuff going on. Definitely when groups of people get together and they're trying to control or hurt someone, and they're all working together to cast spells on them and to send intentions towards them and to do rotten, nasty things to them, I would consider that abuse. I wouldn't just pass that off as just people's like normal religious freedoms, that it's okay for them to, hurt the firstborn in their family ritualistically, and you know what I mean, things like that. Like, we got to get some kind of handle on it. We do have laws for a reason. That is the only thing that prevents all of this around you from turning into Old Testament Sodom and Gomorrah. So, it's up to you guys whether or not you want to, live in that kind of world that's completely uncontrollable, where even the children have been taught to be, perverse and evil, and, there is no innocence and good around you to even love or select from, or to get it, you know what I mean, to bump heads with or anything, I and I would have had a lot of weird supernatural experiences at the time, but also had to deal with a lot of people who were secretly evil, who were operating churches, and I wish that I would have kind of figured it out sooner than I did, but I was young and it was my first time around, and maybe it was my mistake for allowing these people to talk me into going back to church. But in some ways it was really good, because I did learn a lot. There actually was a lot of biblical based information there, and spiritually based information that is actually true. The rest of it could have very much been just manipulation tactics, and but most of all, a big red flag about that church or any other church is that if they don't teach, um, us to uh, battle evil or protection from evil, if they don't teach protection from evil, and they don't teach the expulsion of demons, then they might be one of the bad churches, like one of the bad guy churches. things actually got bad enough in my life that I did call out, knowing that my car was probably bugged and that Google and other sources were definitely listening through my phone, and knowing that I was probably being neurally monitored, and that people might have access even to my point of view. I did let out a um, a vocalization of some kind that I heard they even named behind the scenes, and I heard that they named it the Scream. And the vocalization was a scream, but it wasn't just any scream. And the reason why I did that was in part because people did push me to a point of desperation, during which I did call out for help from the celestial realms, from both my deity, who I personally honor, and I also called out to extraterrestrials. And I did that um, by screaming a scream that was particularly long, longer, louder, and probably more intense than any other human who I know of could potentially replicate or copy. It would take humans practice, someone who is fully human, it would take them practice and or going through extreme circumstances to get them to scream this scream. And getting onto the subject of hyperdimensional languages, hyperdimensional communication and code, there are certain sounds that cannot be mistaken for anything other than exactly what they are. Obviously a scream, a blood-curdling scream, means, some pretty horrific stuff, no matter what country you're from, no matter which nation's intelligence agency is listening in on a blood-curdling scream. You know what I mean? Everybody gets the same, kind of, that was bad idea from that, and that same blood-curdling scream, or that same, laughter, can apparently be heard all across the multi-dimensional multiverse. A scream is, a signal, definitely, both out in the hoods, just like you guys heard that signal earlier, whatever that was, that loud. I've never heard that, and all the time. I mean, I've been here for a couple months. That's the first time that I've heard that, anything like that, and that was right here out front. I mean, I even went and looked for a second to make sure that there wasn't a couple cars that just slammed into each other, or somebody laying out in the street. I at least went and looked. Signals were oftentimes used and have been used around me in the trafficking world, in the world where the life that I've lived, where I have frequently had a handler who might not it wouldn't have been in their best interest to be, on Messenger, or even though I heard that they do have group chats on Messenger and Signal and Telegram. I've seen them use lights to signal each other. I've seen them use like flashlights and things like that. This is the first time that I've worked with, or that I've made a video with these lights in front of me like this. It's not working out for me very well at all. It's actually kind of making me sick, but I guess I just won't do it after this. A little bit photosensitive, and honestly, for LED, I mean, these are some really warm, amazing lights. Like, I'm surprised that these are really so bold. They're literally just like little teeny tiny lights, so it's quite intense. I know that's a little bit dorky, but anyways, back to the alien subject. Sorry, they're not necessarily all aliens like we would call like aliens. Many of them are just people from somewhere else. Some of them are also people from here secretly who weren't ever part of society like the way that we know it. Or so anyways, a lot of these people who were given neural monitoring technology and eye cameras, like I said, are basically just slaves. A lot of really foul things are being done to them. And it not only is it being watched by basically whoever wants to hack into and watch it, I've heard that it has also been live streamed on the dark web at different times. And I have seen some like point of views that are on like YouTube, especially, where it almost looks like that it's point of views that were actually inspired by people's real eye camera footage. The same thing for animals. There's suddenly all this point of view, and it's like, oh, we just strapped this little camera on top of this bee, and you know what I mean? It's like, okay, nanotechnology eye cameras now. So by placing cameras in eyes of others, unsuspecting whoever, and this Neuralink technology, all this tech, and not actually having perfected it to the point that it could not be hacked into, not only do we reveal potentially secrets about what's going on in the actual culture of whatever nation that these victims are in, but it also shines a light for beings who are disconnected from us, maybe haven't been connected to Earth for quite a long time, or have never been connected to Earth, or whatever. Just all of them being able to see these sequence of events play out through the eyes of others, and to see just how much just how much trauma is being imposed on these people, all for the sake of this energy harvesting system and some other very evil, lower frequency, agendas, and some lower frequency belief patterns, and behavioral patterns that others have been allowed to indulge in. Imagine ET, watching all these different. There's most of them, I'm told, or that I'm gathering from what I'm hearing, is that the majority of the people who have eye cameras installed are females. They are supposed to be higher resonating females, higher frequency females who are a little bit more difficult to be um, to control, I guess. So it's weird to hear that, that aspect of the story when I've also heard, whenever I also heard that, they tried to only put these, eye cameras or whatever in the eyes of people who were, just prostitutes. They like to use the words junkies, homeless people, drug dealers, people who they thought, that it was just the end of the line for that person and that they couldn't be rehabilitated. But at the same hand, then you have, there being an awful lot of these people who are just victims and they're just being watched. You know what I mean? Extraterrestrials are apparently just watching the powers that be, brutalize these basically hybrids. And that, I guess, has also been part of the extraterrestrial DNA research. And so it's basically like taking, an extraterrestrial that came here from another planet, and like getting them to call home. Only it's an extraterrestrial that's not from another planet, but hereditarily or biologically, instinctually or instinctively, theoretically speaking, maybe we can get that human alien hybrid to call home if we put them in like such a great distress, such a great level of distress that they, would call upon their ancestral line, call upon, others who are a part of their same species. I do believe that that was part of their studies and part of like something that they did try to do. And that they did drive people to the point of desperation until they called upon their own deities, and that they actually did vocally, biologically call upon their extraterrestrial heritage, ancestry, relatives, homies, sky fam, calling on the sky fam for help, or whatever, which I would have never, like, I guess thoughts like that did cross my mind, fleeting, but not, it wasn't something that I, I wasn't going out there like Tesla and trying to set things up in the yard to contact aliens and stuff like that. It didn't happen. Didn't go down like that. It was a much more, it was a much deeper thing than that. And I heard that it did get everyone's attention, and I can't say that it was, it may have gotten so much attention on me that it could possibly be part of the reason why I was treated so badly for so long, and why I've never actually made it out of this situation yet. Because I don't feel like a person should be considered a traitor if they are pushed biologically to call on their own alien race to please come assist with this problem. And to my surprise, I end up hearing that these extraterrestrial peoples, that sky peoples actually did respond to my call. Now, and I do definitely believe it. But I am upset that, like, that so many people worked together so hard to make things so terrible for so long that that anyone would actually cry out for help like that from God or from aliens or anything like that. Like the fact that anyone felt like things were so bad here that they couldn't get the help that they needed and that they had to call on to the celestial world for help. That's really super crappy. There is a YouTuber that I know of who talks about hyperdimensional languages, code, and all of that. Her name is Daisy, and her channel is called Proof of Chaos. You might want to check that out if you haven't. I would look further back in her videos, especially. There's a lot of information in her videos about license plate space code. It's pretty interesting. Also about how the license plate code relates to the PDF issues that Earth is having right now. But anyways, yeah, like, I guess part of their research project crap was to see if they could get us to biologically call upon our own races for help or whatever. But one of the things that Daisy talks about is that our skin pigment carries a certain code. She says that certain code is from here on Earth, but that other pigment is from, it's a number, and your number links you to a certain star system, a certain planet, where your, whichever alien race that you are, genetically entwined with, that you guys are from that particular star system or that particular planet. And that is one of the reasons why all of our cultures are so different, which is really bizarre. And that also this number, your melanin number, also is supposed to link you to a certain aquatic animal, a certain flower, certain, I'm going to have to go back and like refresh up on all that because it's been well over a year since I was watching all that, and I then had to run away from California, and it took me about 5 days to run away from California, and then I got caught up in Reno, Nevada, and robbed of all of my cell phones and everything that I had, as a foot traveler. I lingered in Reno longer than I should have, instead of just getting on any train or bus or train, plane, anything. I couldn't have got on a plane. Just any way out. I feel like I didn't act quickly enough, and that I got robbed there, and I was easily hijacked thereafter and held hostage in different places for a total of about 6 weeks to 2 months. It was really terrible. But anyway, hang on a second. So I'd been learning like a lot of the real technical space related and other weird, stuff like that quite a bit up until that point. And then I got kind of chased out of, I had to run away from California, and I got caught up over Christmas in, Reno, and getting robbed, and Sparks being held captive. And then I ran away from there, hitchhiked south out of there on foot in the wintertime, and made it to Arizona, where I was hijacked from a park. It was actually a park ranger who was part of a trafficking ring. Park ranger that's part of a trafficking ring in it's called Fort Tuttle or something like that. I can't remember quite what the name of it is. Something like that in Arizona, right outside of Flagstaff, Arizona. I stayed a couple nights there in the winter in a tent, and am pretty sure that the forest ranger there sold me out and had a trafficker come start talking to me and stuff like that. And I would end up going to his sister's house, which is also a business, and just staying there for a little while. But it was the same. It was the same thing as the place in Sparks, where I was basically held, not allowed to use the phone. Everybody was really serious about not helping me get my phone back on, not even giving me any, you know what I mean? I'm in this beautiful casita where everybody's quite, well off, but, nobody will even let me clean dog crap out of the garage for $50 or $30 so I can get my phone turned on. And everybody's real weird about not letting me use, the internet or the whatever, or anything that I do. They have to hover over me and monitor. And yeah, you can use my phone for 10 minutes, you know what I mean? Or something, it goes into the trafficking thing and the MDK for hire and everybody's, contracted campaigns and stuff like that. And then also something that's really disgusting that they do with the DNA research is for the women, they steal our monthly, any kind of monthly menstrual trash. They will steal that. I have seen complete crackheads come in and go through the trash, pull my pads out of the trash, put them into a separate bag, and leave, whatever crappy trailer that they were keeping me held in. And, there are people who, get to watch my point of view that that they're paying for that, and the person selling the point of view gets paid for that. Nasty, junky crackheads who dig in our trash to get, stem cells for research groups. They get paid to do things like that. All of these people, all of these separate entities, from the mad scientist right down to the crackhead who gets paid to pull things out of trash. All of those people, they all get paid and get to, there's a whole economy associated with samples being taken from civilians, photos being taken of them, their hair being taken, their trash that has their saliva on bottles being taken, any of their personal documents. If it can be stolen, that they will make sure that it's stolen. You order it 5 times and they'll still figure out how to steal it. The DNA research, a lot of that has been so blatant and disgusting, and it ties in with eventual harvesting. You're definitely not treated very well at all if you are, you know, the subject of any of these research groups. I've actually had them do something. One really disgusting thing is they would know, by schedule when I was going to start my moon time. And as I was being trafficked around, not sexually, but moved around, kept an eye on, had a handler. They were trying to do it like that, but I wasn't cooperative in that way. Um, and because they were all being sent in by cops and had secret cameras everywhere, um, they weren't going to force themselves on me because everything was being recorded anyways. So, anyways, they would move me to these nasty RV campers, which I absolutely cannot stand RVs and campers, especially after them doing this to me all these times, how just disgusting a camper and RV is to me. Um, like the brand new ones are kind of nice to maybe spend the night in for a night or two, but I have higher standards than RVs and campers now. Sorry. Really, like, even though I'm super poor, my standards are way higher than campers and RVs, especially because they did this to me. But what they would do is they would set the toilet up to where while I had started and stuff, that I would go, use the bathroom over this toilet. Well, the guy would make sure that he didn't use the toilet at all for the 24 hours that I was there, or 12 hours that I was there, or whatever. And so they would be able to collect, or for however long I was there, they would try to make sure that I was in one of these nasty RVs or campers so that they could actually collect as much of like the raw moontime yuck that they possibly could for their research. So not only would they collect my trash, they were actually collecting like whole like buckets full of, you know what I mean, of that. And they were even going and removing them and taking them and getting them out of there and stuff like that while I was still in the trailer and stuff like that before I'd even left. I can't tell you how many different DNA related research projects that anyone has me in, but I know one of them at least is this extraterrestrial research. So, as far as I know, they're the ones, in part behind having this trafficking and genocide and torture and harassment whole thing happen. You know what I mean? Because as long as they're able to move me from place to place to place to place and person, then they always have access to any samples that they might be able to take from a person. Samples of, if somebody clips their nails, or if somebody shaves their legs, if somebody is, you know what I mean, if it's that time of the month for somebody, if this person that they just allow to come in off the streets for a second needs a haircut, then they can collect their hair. If they can get guys who are on the research list, if they can get them to use prophylactics, then they can collect the contents of the prophylactics. Sounds pretty disgusting. I'm not really sure what they would do with it, but they're disgusting like that. So, I'm pretty sure that they might even collect, like when we blow our noses and there's snot in the trash, they could even be collecting stuff like that. You never know. But yeah, so you've had all of these people who cameras were shoved in their eyes, and basically the only thing that was going to be done to them afterwards is a lot of very, very inhumane and ridiculous torture, testing, um, uh, just and they're just gonna unleash. They were literally, I've heard, summoning demons and doing witchcraft on all of these people who that they had cameras in their eyes and everything, and they're doing all of these things to brutalize these people and to make them try to make them go crazy if they're not already crazy, and to hunt these people down to make sure that no one else, gets a hold of their bodies, especially because of all of the, nanotech, or, and all these people, especially, I guess, Elon Musk testing us out for his AI, testing his AI technology out on, I don't know. But lots of different weird humane testing, and abuse and exploitation that has gone on, and while also, at the same time that, extraterrestrials or hackers from anywhere are able to watch from the point of view of the victim, they're also able to watch the videos that others are making of the victim, say maybe while the victim is unconscious. That is one of the things that other people will have power over you. Like if you're neurally monitored, they can make you fall asleep, and they can watch your rhythms to make sure that you're still asleep no matter what they do to you or around you. And that's been one of the biggest and most significant, most horrific forms of abuse to ever happen to any of these civilians. Some people want to call them TIs. I think that when we go calling people targeted individuals and TIs, that we're lumping them into a category of individuals who everybody just ignores. And so I'm not really trying to do that so much. I don't ignore the targeted individual community, and I'm actually just now getting into it, learning about it, and I think that everybody should too. Like everybody, like, you should give it a chance, even though like some of the videos are even hard for me to watch, and I come from really bad trauma, so it is difficult for me to watch videos about American civilians being hunted down with drones. That is really difficult for me, because it's kind of the same thing for me, but just I've also heard that the very so this is a weird idea too, which is that there might be a shortage of females, or that there might become a shortage of females, and this is like a global thing that began over in China and Russia. And I heard that everyone with a social security number was sold online to Russia and China, which I believe has something to do with the Hunter Biden laptop and the affiliations between the Biden family and Russia. This information about people being sold as slaves. The website where we were all sold has actually been seized by the FBI. And across the top of the website is this, it actually says on there, like, this website was seized by the feds. And I actually visited the website myself just to see, you know what I mean? Just so I could be like, I've seen this. And I'm told that after this happened, that there was a stop put on it at some point, but that Americans were, I guess, technically sold. But one of the ways that they were sold was that, cameras were placed in their eyes, and they would be harvested from in all these different ways, both by taking samples from them and by putting them in these energy harvesting campaigns, which the energy harvesting is part of it is Luciferian witchcraft, and part of it is technology, because they've kind of learned how to mix the two, and to use technology to do to get the results that they wanted through their witchcraft and stuff. It's all kind of pretty weird. Part of energy harvesting is basically that they've turned humans into batteries. And like the movie Monsters, Inc., they are able to, you can imagine a whole city being powered off of the fear and screams of a little kid. So that's basically what they did to me. Was they put me in a situation where I would be so abused and tormented, and things would be so dark and evil and scary for so long that that they would be able to draw all of this energy from my fear. And I did explain in videos before that these people got me to a point of fear that I didn't know that human beings could experience or go through at all. Like, I didn't know that humans could be forced into that kind of fear or trauma. This was a fear that, like, I could feel the energy of my fear all around my body. I mean, it extended 10 to 12 feet. I felt that the more energy that I had, I could feel it actually draining. And I knew that, that there was some kind of tech that was draining my energy, and that they created all of that fear and all of that energy, and all of that pain, and that they were also leaching all of that energy out of me, that I wouldn't even be able to use the energy that they'd created with my pain and fear, for my own motivation, or for my, to put any under my own step. So it's really horrible and disgusting. And there, when you go and you begin to eliminate an entire gender from a species, that does create a pretty serious threat. And while you've got these dorks who say that they're doing these experiments and that they have to do this research because they're worried about something or other being an existential threat, they themselves ended up actually being the threat that was so serious, that um, it may have even caused extraterrestrials to head this way and to begin to play more of an obvious part in our lives than they did before. Um, because there are voices crying out for help. And, I do believe that there is a God who hears them and angels who hear them. And I also believe very much so that there are extraterrestrials and hyperdimensional beings, um, who also hear the cries and calls and and prayers even, because a prayer, that's something that's very mental and spiritual. That's something that you're sending out. You're sending out these words and thoughts or feelings. These prayers. That's all. I mean, that's all. That's all. Technically, that would be telepathy. You would be, you know, sending and receiving. Um, you know, but our words for things like telepathy, that's even too clinical of a terminology for what it really is. So, anyways, everybody down here thinks that it's all fun and games to join in on, um, not letting reindeer, poor old Rudolph have any fun. And, uh, there's a lot of evil down here involved in the watching of and the monitoring of all of these slaves and victims of technology. And then you have extraterrestrials involved as well, who um, they may have also played a part in the intervention between humans and, um, you know, in the past. There seemed to potentially be some information about, you know, alien interference. All right, I'm gonna try to find. Actually, I'm gonna save that for a different. I'm gonna save the biblical, spiritual, any verses pertaining to any of this, or old hymnals that I associate with extraterrestrial life. I'm gonna save that for a different video, I guess. I made this video earlier, and a video like this earlier, and I actually got so emotional that it was too dorky for me to upload, and so I had to start over and do this one. So, when you hear any of these guys who want to pretend that they're, God's gift to the whole planet, billionaires, the smartest, richest guys on earth, and all this, when you hear those people try to say that that these the aliens, that we're all under threat by these, that we have to protect ourselves, that we have to shoot aliens down out of the sky, and that they're here to hurt us and stuff like that. Until I see them actively hurting us with my own eyes, which, there is this one concept that they are actually running the government. I have heard that it could be a certain type of extraterrestrial who is, like maybe some of the nastier ones, that they do have a hand in some of how the government is run, that in exchange for certain kinds of technologies or whatever, that certain civilians are allowed to be really brutalized and terrible things done to, and that this is part of a slave exchange between species, and but there are obviously, if there's one alien species, then there's obviously several different other alien species, and not every alien species would want to be a part of and take part in the disassembling of the human race and the human body, and the enslavement of humans with this energy harvesting tech, and the neural monitoring tech and the eye cameras. I don't believe that every person or that every alien race is going to be okay with that, especially whenever it's led to such extreme, would we call it gendercide? If we're running out of females in the grand scheme of things, or if the majority of females are only in certain countries, and certain other countries have a much lower rate of them, or I'm not even sure if that gender issue is even a concern, the way that it was presented to me, or the way that I've considered it. But I will tell you that as a trafficking victim, as I pass through the streets, and of all of the U.S., there's a crap load of dudes who will pull over and try to solicit me as I'm walking along the road, especially. And some of those men will very genuinely look at me and ask me if I know where the women went, if I know what happened to the women. And they will very specifically say, I remember when there used to be women here. Do you know what might have happened to them? And whether they're sent to me or not, they still get the chance to ask me that question. And I have to very honestly look at these men and tell them that those women who used to be here are probably dead. So until we do a head count, then we won't know how many of our civilians were actually replaced with people from other countries, when all of our social security card or social security numbers or whatever were sold, and all of us were there were certain Americans that were replaced with people from other countries, and you know, and then so many people, adults and children, coming up from each state over the years, and in that it would be this incredible growing number. Just like how did all of these people end up missing all at once, year after year? You've got 10,000 from one state, 20,000 from one state, and that's just the kids. That doesn't even hit the adults yet. And so now there is this question in our population, and we will require another census. I can say that I wasn't added into the 2020 census. People made sure that I was not going to be able to add myself to the 2020 census. The paperwork was literally laying there, and they were not allowing me to fill it out. So the slavery, especially as far as the census is concerned, you just heard it from me that some people aren't even allowed to fill out the census sometimes. You guys are going to have to figure that part out too. The main person that I've seen talk about how we better do something about these aliens before they get here and all that has been Elon Musk. And just to know that he is one of the bad guys in this situation, who would have been responsible for, part of, some of the most massive aspects of people actually getting to the point that they had to call out for deities, and to, celestial beings and species, and interdimensional races and stuff for help. So if people say, the aliens are coming and we need to hurry and get ready, and so that we can battle them so that they don't destroy us all, I would not believe that at all. I would not believe what that person is saying, and I would actually question that person and what they've been doing. You know what I mean? For them to worry about whether or not aliens are going to come after them for what they've done. You know what? I am going to read you guys this hymnal, okay? Because I really do feel like that it's a hymnal it's cool. It's a cool old hymnal, and it does kind of tie into this a little bit. I can make it tie into this, okay? And a lot, it's quite famous. The church bells play it over here all the time. All right, and before I get emotional about it, I'm going to go ahead and read it to you while I'm still in clinical mode. Okay, how great thou art. O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. When through the woods and forest glades I wander, and hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees, when I look down from lofty mountain grandeur and hear the brook and feel the gentle breeze, and when I think that God, his son, not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can't take it in, that on the cross, my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart? Then I will bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee, how great thou art, how great thou art, how great thou art, and how great thou art, for real. And it's not only just earthly beings who worship, it's also extraterrestrials apparently who worship and who also have spirit lives and are believers, which is really exciting to me. But when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made. And I am fully aware of the history of the Nephilim and the fallen angels, and the meddling of the DNA, and that's also something that Proof of Chaos that Daisy also talks about. I am aware of all of that. However, I don't believe that every extraterrestrial race was created through genetic modification by fallen angels just here messing around on the planet Earth as they were trying to be spiteful to God. I think that that creation extends past everything that has been created on planet Earth. I do believe that life was created elsewhere, and that that those are different species and races of beings who are not specifically, humans just like us. Now, I do think that there are people just like us from other places, humans from other places, but they're not humans in the terms of us humans from this earth. They're people from other planets, not humans from Earth, not Earthlings. We are the only Earthlings. So that makes us very special. And in this situation, our species is under threat, especially one gender of our species is in, under really terrible threat. And the children of all humanity have fallen prey to a very sick and twisted, disgusting network. And, this is something that has been, there's been issues for a while. And, rather than us improving as a culture and as humanity, we instead are, beginning to engage in, we'd begun to engage in some really sick and twisted, disgusting things. And, you've got you've got cameras in people's faces and you've got hackable technology in people's heads. You've turned people's heads into, satellite dishes, and, everybody can see what's happening here. And, apparently a lot of that was recorded, that every bit of it was recorded. It could be that that sky people have recorded everything that is potentially recordable, to us or from our planet. And that we in some ways have done the same thing, but they have the ability to do it in a much cleaner, easier way than us. So anyways, there's some pretty weird information in there. It's probably not all information that everybody would have wanted me to share. So I do expect that there's going to be a lot of gaslighting and abusive commentary. But this has been a really important, subject to me, especially because I did get upset enough that I personally called not only on God, but also on any interstellar or even hyperdimensional beings who might be able to hear me and intercede or intervene for me, which I am not entirely sure if they did intervene for me, but I did have one YouTuber say that, and I'm just going to quote this as well as I can, that I would have been put on ice had it not been for the crafts hovering over me, and for the sheer amount of involvement that it seemed like UAPs were hovering over me no matter where I went. And that might also be another reason why I was pushed all over the country, which also ties into the CIA Artichoke Project. getting me to go all over the place in as many different places as possible while they, apparently watch the skies above me to see whether or not, and apparently they were able to watch all kinds of activity in the sky above me. And then also whenever I was out on the ocean, they were able to record a great deal of marine activity in the sea around me. So, those are just some concepts that I've heard through the internet, and then also my own life experience. And I really have to end this here, and just thanks anybody who's actually listened this long, and who has had the attention span to actually pay attention to what I'm telling you. I realize that to just sit and talk to you goes against the Luciferian laws of power. That if I'm not presenting you with, some, special cards or something like that, or, presenting you with, pictures and videos, what I mean, to go along with what I'm saying. I did not mean to make the sign of whatever just now. I'm literally like just fidgeting with rings. I would not be trying to make any satanic hand signs ever at any point. If you ever see anybody lifting their hands up to make any signs like that, that ain't me, okay? That's not me. If you ever see anyone who looks like, if they try to act like that's me in the future, it's not. They've replaced me. Oh, so anyways, and then I also heard that in my last apartment that I lived in a good while back, I've heard that there is still activity in the skies above it, and that they have not left from there. So, and that would be out in Buchanan, West Virginia. So, I mean, I don't know if there's activity in the skies above, a certain apartment complex in Buchanan, West Virginia, but I've heard tale. But yeah, I don't want this video to take too long to upload, so I'm going to end this here. I really try not to make my videos this length of time because I don't want to throw anybody's ADHD off. Feel free to watch any of my videos that you need to at a higher speed, because I'm not necessarily trying to take up over an hour's worth of your time every day or at any point at all. But yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah. All right, peace.